here's a couple of things before we package the Unreal project. Sorry for the low resolution, I'm using a different machine. So the first thing I need to correct is in my previous tutorial I created movies in a different folder, movies 3 folder. This will causing problem. In the future, after you package, you will see some of the video will be black, it's missing. The reason is you have to make sure all the movie component should be put into a folder called movies. So right now I will just do some cleanup work. I will drag all components from movie 3 back into movie. Just choose move here. So is all there now. And then I will get rid of this old folder. I don't need this anymore. You can do force delete. It will give you some warning because some of these interdependent link will be broken, so you need to double check after you delete. Alright, so I have everything there. If I play, it doesn't really make any difference, but right now everything is inside the movies folder. You should also go to show explore. Just make sure, in the movies 3 folder, you should copy this to video file into movies as well. So everything will be exactly in the same location. Alright, so movie 3 folder is empty, it's nothing there. If you restart a project, you see this folder movie 3 will actually disappear. But right now let's not worry about it. Then I want to make sure all the link is still working. So if you recall, this is the material called Cube 3. This is the right material, right? So here if you choose browse, it's still find it. For that, right material is linked to the right file source, right? So if you double click, you see here it's still trying to link back to movie 3. So you want to make sure you update the link, otherwise it will give you some missing connections. So right file source, you basically just need to just check all the source you have, make sure the link is correct. Okay, so I think I have another one called blue file source, right? So here is also linked to the wrong folder, movies folder. Okay, so that's good. I also want to make sure this one, that's fine, and this one is fine. You just want to make sure all the source are linked to the correct one. Then I will just simply do save all to update. Okay, so that is the first thing, update our movies folder. The second is we are going to package this into a VR ready executable file. So I would recommend, besides a third person, you can actually add feature or content pack. You can actually add a first person, because in the VR, third person will be strange, right? You can't really do a VR in third person because the camera is actually floating in the air. It's very weird. So I want to switch to first person. So adding that, and then click add to project. It will give you this kind of rig. So I already did this, so I don't have to redo. So after I add first person, there's a bunch of new folder will show up, such as first person arms, first person weapon. This is the 3 folders, the new folder. And now if you switch to the world settings in the game mode, you should have this new one called BP first person game mode. So that's something new. If you really switch, if you see this is a new pawn, it's called BP first person pawn, a first person character. If you go ahead browse, you can find this one right here. If you double click, you can see this is a new character with viewport. You can see there is a, the weapon is hidden, but you can see the arms and gear. In our first play, we don't really need to see the arms, right? So I will just simply go to the first person mesh. This is basically children under the camera. So here if you search render, you can have this option called hidden in game. So basically that will just mask or hide this gear, these 2 arms when you do the first person play. so hide the arm in the game. Alright, then I will compile, I will save, close. So I think that's all you need to do. So now if I play in the viewport, I do the play in the new editor window, I can see this is a first person view, right? I don't have that robot anymore, but it still works for all the interactions. So if I get closer to the door, I can trigger the light on. If I go to the collision, this pad, then I can see the video be triggered, right? So you can still have these functions. You want to make sure this one is working too, right? Okay, so it's all working pretty well. I think that's it for this trigger the VR with trigger the first person with the first person package. Then the next thing I'm gonna do before I package is to testing this in the VR mode. So in the settings, go to plugins, and here if you just type VR, this is the plugins you can support VR preview in Unreal. OpenXR should be the one you want to check, but also just for the sake of, because I'm using the HTC Vive, so I check the Steam VR as well. In the future, if you use Oculus VR, you want to check Oculus VR as well. So I check all three of them. Then we'll have to restart the project. These three plugins will kick in. What happens is, if you have this VR plugin activated, now if you go to the play mode, you should have this new one called VR preview. So if I click this preview, right, I have this, if I using my headset, I have this in another, is attached to my computer, so I'm able to look around through this HTC Vive. The shader looks a little bit odd, but that's okay. I think this is is out there. Some of the advanced shader is not supported, so you have to keep in mind. The look might not look like exactly the same. Okay, so you have this VR be triggered. I will basically switch back to a selected view mode. So now you have the first person in a view in the viewport. Alright, so this is all the prepared work you have to do. Then the next step I'm going to do is go to platforms. I'm going to package the project. If you're doing the Windows, I probably want to just using the project settings. Default is the development mode. What this means is it will not be the final version, but is a little bit faster. And also you can see the installed SDK. If you don't have this option, if you use your personal laptop, just make sure, I can show you really quick, you have to install the Visual Studio. In my case, I use Visual Studio 2019. Actually, I don't need to run Visual Studio. I just need to go Visual Studio Installer. This is the program you want to make sure you have the latest update for the Visual Studio. And I have 2019. And in the modify button, you should be able to see all the component you already installed into your Visual Studio 2019 community. So one important one, if you really see these groups, there's one group actually called Game Development with C++. This is actually Unreal using C++. If you're using the Unity, this is one you should definitely click. So here, if I choose Game Development with C++, these are the components I installed. So just make sure you have this installed. That should be fine. If you don't have, you're probably gonna fail for packaging. Okay, so that is basically the default. By the way, let me just modify one more time. I have the Windows latest SDK. This is called Windows 10 SDK installed. Right, just make sure you have this one. If you use Windows 11, you have to do the 11 SDK. But I use the latest SDK, so that is the pretty solid build for Unreal Engine 5. Okay, so this is the installation file you need to make sure you have in your Visual Studio. All right, I think that's it. Then when you go ahead to do packaging, you should have this option is called SDK. That's matching the SDK number. One more thing before you do the packaging is I usually go to the packaging settings. In the packaging settings, this is a place you can actually see which level you want to package. This is very important. Maybe I will start from the scratch. So in the maps and the movies, make sure you only set the level you want to publish into the default, the first map. So this is called default maps. Right? So in my case, it's called main. Right? And also you want to make sure the game default map is the same, main. Right? If you don't set up this way, it will play as maybe you have multiple maps. Project, it might be choose a random one. So make sure you choose the startup map and the default map as your main, as the one you want to publish. You can actually see all of them available here. I have multiple maps. Another one I usually do is in the packaging. There is an option called let me just search map here. Yeah, it's under the project packaging. So here's a list of maps you want to package in your build. So right now I only have one listed here. It's called main. But if you have multiple, you can add. If you don't need them, you can delete. Right? Just make sure you have only target the map you want to publish. So Unreal won't, it will ignore other maps. All right. So that's a list of maps to include in a package build. Okay, so this is in the packaging in the project settings. Then I think I'm ready to package, so I will save all. Then I'm going to do the packaging in Windows Package Project. Right? And you should identify a folder you want to package. So here I will create a new folder I called ArcViz 7014 D2, right? Just whatever name you feel comfortable with. So inside this empty folder, I will select. Right. So now the packaging start. You can see there is a packaging node right here. You can show the output log. So it really depends on the complexity of your project. This will take range from 2 minutes to 20 minutes or even 1 hour. Depends. So just be patient. You can take a have some coffee, come back later. It's also good advice. You can monitor the log. If you see anything like yellow or red color, that's basically a warning. So you can maybe debug this in the future. I hope this will not be a bug in your project, but this is basically the way you can monitor. Okay, so I got some yellow color, which is probably some warning. The warning is not too bad because it's basically just telling me there's some twin motion animation file is missing. Yeah, because character animation is not supported. I think I didn't delete this very clean, but that's just yellow color. But if you see a red color, you will have some issues. Okay, so I will pause the recording, and 3 minutes. I think the packaging is complete, and you can definitely see this word, the build successful. Yeah, I think that's all done. So now, if I go to the folder I just created the build, which is in Unreal Project, build, and D2. Right. One more thing, don't make the path too deep, because I think Unreal has a limit for 256 strings. So if you have a super long name, super long, deep depths, you will have some troubles. So now we have the Windows. This is basically a packaged file, and this is executable file, right? This is application, it's an app. It's not really an Unreal project anymore. And also, if you check the size of the whole build, it should be significantly smaller than the original project. It's only 900 megabits. In the standard of Unreal, this is very typical. And because I have some video files, so under the engine, this is all the uh, codes can run the project under the folder called the project name. You can see there is content folder, movie folder. This is actually the video file embedded. So theoretically, if you want to switch this video now, you can replace with the same name. It will just load in whatever that the video is. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this. I will double click to run this executable file. Okay. Yeah, I can just say allow access. Um, here we go. Now we have this first person view. Very nice. We have this, very smooth. I can go trigger the light. Yeah, I can go here, trigger the video, right? Everything is visible. And I can go here, trigger the blue video, right? It's all there. And also I can go up, trigger the bright daylight, and then I can go down. It has this daylight mode. Okay, so here if you're using the console command, I can type stereo on, right? So now it will basically trigger the VR headset. It's a little bit dark, but you can still see I'm moving my VR headset. Then I can look around, look up. You can see everything in VR mode. Okay, so that's all works. So if I want to exit, I will use console command. Then I will type stereo off. Right. So I'm going back to my regular non-VR mode. You do notice the rendering quality in the VR mode is not as high as the the computer screen, right? Because the resolution of is completely different. Okay, that's a different story. Maybe we cover in another day. All right. So if I want to exit, I can use console command and type exit. All right. So I think that's it. This is how process to build your package. In the future, if you want to give this to another person, just make sure this folder you can zip, you can just copy over to a USB drive, external hard drive. That's all you want to deliver. This is pretty safe. Nobody can really see the code you'll have. Okay, I hope that's gonna be